Lots more of the components have been taken off now of the underside of the M3. Previously we'd seen the stripped down starting, and now as you can see, it's a very bare chassis underneath. We've got no fuel tank system, no fuel and filler neck system, no brake pipes, no rear axle, and going through to the centre of the car we've got no pipe work. Obviously the exhaust is off, one of the first early things. No prop shaft, heat shields. And then moving ourselves down to the front, because it included this underside restoration, a front complete underside restoration, we've had to remove all of the front items as well. So that's the cross member that goes underneath the engine. It's also the front wishbones, the steering tie rods, the steering rack, the knuckles, the struts, pretty much everything. We've got our special tools on there, which is what's supporting the engine at the moment. It's a replica of a very small subframe, which is what the engine mounting arms bolt through to, and they load their energy into the OEM bolt locations, which then go into the chassis legs. The fact that then that gives us a very narrow contact patch means we can get to the surface corrosion areas where normally a subframe fitted would hide a lot of that and wouldn't allow us to get into certain crevices. And if there is anything underneath these mounts, then obviously we need to support the engine for a brief amount of time whilst this comes off to tackle anything underneath there. But it gives us much more area to work and make sure that the job can be done to a very thorough standard. And you can see there's a lot of either dirt collection here or what we think might be excessive cavity waxing. This is not normally this concentrated with dirt, but because it's probably been waxed in this area before, for example, this is all quite a sticky area behind the wheel arch liner, which is wax, and then the dirt which is on the road and in the airflow is just sticking to that like a magnet. That's why that area is very dirty, so that needs a lot of scrubbing and cleaning and degreasing. Very similar with the left hand side as well. Not as much concentration of dirt. We'd expect to see some dirt, but there's excessive amounts there. Doesn't look to be a huge amount of corrosion in this area, which is always good news. Sometimes it builds up around these front control arm brackets where the reinforcement plates go in. You can see there's a little bit here on one of the Presto cage clips, but mostly the seam sealer is intact, which is great news. Being a convertible, it's slightly different. It's got different seal sections, stronger seals. So we've got areas that on a convertible overlap. We've got the outer seal, which is overlapping and not seam sealed from the factory, which is odd, but that's how they all are. So normally we'd expect to see corrosion in areas that haven't got good seam sealer, but this car is looking good and hopefully won't need too much corrosion work. We can see it's been jacked up poorly before in the past because there's a seam sealer split just here. Somebody's obviously jacked it up in board of the jacking pad, which are the pads that stay present in all of the car's chassis, and it looks like somebody's distorted the floor. Quite a common thing that we see sometimes for rush tyre installs. Not saying any tyre fitter has done it, it's just sometimes we see that sort of thing. So there's an issue there we're going to have to address and investigate to see if there's anything different. Probably should be similar to this side, where there's this side looking a little bit gapped as well. That might just be mud, or it might be deformation where a big pad, sometimes like huge trolley jack pads or long trolley jacks, might have touched that and caused a sort of a seam sealer split. So we need to look into that area. And eagle-eye viewers would have noticed that the engine is looking quite bare as well, because there's no exhaust manifold on there. So because it's a full underside restoration and a very extensive one at that, that nowadays really needs to include the exhaust manifold. As the exhausts get a little bit older, they do get relatively corroded. It's only external corrosion, but we also do see some of them at the downpipe flange, which lives about here, two of them. One of the sides sometimes cracks all the way around, so we always like to take those off and give them a thorough inspection, and whilst they're off, they're obviously going to be plasma coated as well, very similar to the rear center cats, the center silencer and then the rear silencer. We want that to match. We don't want to see a corroded manifold under there, and that also gives us much better access to some of the engine oil leaks that we're seeing. We've got an oil leak coming down from the timing case, which is quite dirty, which has been going on for a while, and some fresh oil droplets there and there. So there's some things that are going to have to be looked into in that area and addressed whilst the car is apart.